put sandals on his feet, go get a fat calf, kill it, not just any calf, a fat calf. Kill it so we can have a feast and celebrate. My son was, and now he is. He was lost, he is found, and they began to celebrate. So I'm going to read for you. It was in the newsletter 2 weeks ago. This is one of the letters that I've received since the YouTube channel started. Hi, I read your message you wrote today, and it had me in tears. This is a message I put on Facebook about the YouTube channel. I just want to say that your YouTube videos have hit a sensitive Sorry, I grew up with this person, so. They hit a sensitive spot for me. For years, I have lived in guilt and extreme shame. Almost 20 years, to say the truth. I had always loved Jesus, and I kept a secret relationship with him. But I had done some things that I knew were not what people would consider Christian, and I could not bring myself to face the church. I lived with such shame that the thought of walking into church and seeing all those Christian people, well, I couldn't face it. Listen to this. I loved Jesus, but I viewed God as a hard God. I still spoke to him, but I doubted he forgave me. When it came to going to church, well, I could not even think of walking into church and seeing all those faces I had known for years. Then she says this, even though they were kind, I felt shame. And to say the truth, I felt judged even worse than God judges, even if my thoughts were unfounded and it was something I had to avoid. I'm not going to read the rest, but you can see the intense internal struggle. And she goes on to say, I realize now that most of that thinking was in my own head. They actually wanted me. But if people are having that big of a struggle, all the more important it is for us to find avenues to make it easier for them to get over the hump and come home. You see, the father didn't even give the son a chance to see home and go, no, I can't do it. He ran to him when he was still a long way off. I actually read of a Seventh-day Adventist church in the States. They have their greeters in the parking lot. And the reason why they have their greeters in the parking lot was because they heard of someone who came to church one morning, got into the parking lot, froze, turned around, and went home. People who are out there want to come, but the chasm is wide for some of them. All right, the story's not over. So they're in the midst of celebrating. The older son, who hasn't been part of the story except for the very beginning, was in the field, his father's field. As he came closer to the house, he heard the sound of music and dancing. What in the world is that about? So he called to one of the servants and he asked what all this meant. We don't sing or dance around here. What is going on? The servant said, your brother has come back, and your father killed the fat calf because your brother came home safely. It's good news, right? The older son was, and he would not go into the feast. He stayed outside. So the father went out to him and begged him to come in. But the older son said to his father, I have served you. You know what this word actually is? I have slaved for you. I have slaved for you like a slave. Well, as the translation brings it in here. I have served for you like a slave for many years and have always obeyed your commands, but you never gave me even a young goat to have a feast. If this son were to stop slaving and to turn on the music and to start dancing, whatever party he would host, his father would not even be invited. But your other son, who wasted all your money on prostitutes, how does he know that? I would submit to you that he doesn't know that. Comes home and you kill the fat calf for him. Sound like a happy son? Was he happy before this day? I have been slaving for you. Do you know any happy slaves? The father said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. We had to celebrate and be happy because your brother was dead. Now he is alive. But now he's sorry. Question. Who's the lost son? Careful. They're both lost. The father even says, your brother was lost. How did this whole storytelling thing start? Jesus was eating with the tax collectors and the sinners, and the church people came and said, what are you doing? And so he told a story. The first story, somebody was lost out there. The second story, somebody was lost in the house. And then there was a father with two sons. One lost out there, one lost in the house. How many sons does the father love? He left the party for his son who was lost to go find his other son who was just as lost. I didn't tell these stories. I'm just reading to you the stories. I'm just pointing out to you the stories. And it's become increasingly uncomfortable for me to realize that when Jesus was here, the biggest opposition that he faced was not the people out there. It was the people in. Why was the brother angry that his brother came home? Shouldn't he be happy? Why was he angry? Why was he slaving? I wrote a book way a long time ago. I only have one copy left, called Can God Save You? In that book, I asked the question, and the question floored me when it came to me. Do we love the king or the kingdom? It's obvious in this story that the son who stayed home loved the ranch, didn't love his father very much. His father wasn't a father to him, he was a taskmaster. Is that who his father was? Where was the problem? What did my friend say? I loved Jesus, but I saw God as a hard God. Jesus told a story about that, He said there was 3 people who were all given various amounts of talents to work with. The first 2 multiplied their talents. The third one buried his talents in the ground. When the man came looking to see what had been done with the money that he gave them to work with, he said, well, I knew you to be a hard man, so I buried it. I didn't want to lose anything. The picture we have of God determines everything. Absolutely everything. The reason why you come every week is based on your picture of Him. You're either coming in joy to celebrate the privilege you have of being a child of the King, or you're coming because you're obligated to, because someday you're hoping to get the kingdom from the King. And if you're hoping to get the kingdom from the King, then it's a competition, because when the will gets read, how much did I get? And if there's less people involved in the will, then I'm going to get more. So when my brother left, I was happy to slave and work twice as hard, because now everything that the ranch increases in, it's all mine. The Christian race is not a competition. It's not a race where some win and some have to lose like every other human race. It's a race where everybody can win, where God has designed it so everybody wins. Do you know who's suffering the most in this story? The Father. How did the story start again? They were grumbling at Jesus. This story isn't even really about the sheep or the coins or the sons. All 3 stories reveal the heart of the Father. I will not rest until I find you. I want you home. It's because we weren't happy before they came. And we won't be happy whether they stay or they go, because we haven't found joy. We're slaving. And the faithful good son. High and thick. You see how the story ends? Just like that. That's the end of the story. Do you know why it's the end of the story? Because the story was told. If you have siblings children, parents, cousins, anybody you love who's out there. I want to encourage you, just to show you how Tracy was working in Cape Breton, so we were like young as young could be. And one of her co-workers was like a year or two younger even. She had moved from Ontario because Cape Breton couldn't find x-ray techs anywhere to save their lives. So she came, and her and Tracy became fast friends because they were both new and they were both young. And this girl was raised in a home of her parents were atheists. And here's Tracy, the pastor's wife. As we got to know her, she said two fascinating things while we knew her that I have never forgotten. The first was she told this story. And so the Gideon person said, don't take one unless you want one. Leave it for the people who want one. She took one. She took one. So, of course, my obvious question next was, what did I ask her? Awesome. Did you read it? And she looked at me with the most sincere eyes and she said, you know, I've felt guilty ever since because I took it, but I never read it. Why'd she take it? Because the Spirit of God, at grade 3, atheist parents, the Spirit of God was already creating an interest in her for himself. So fast forward a little bit. Tracy and I were singers in a little choir that our church had created. And lo and behold, the Gideons were holding a annual Bible conference, whatever. And our choir was invited to go sing. Well, Danielle had been born by then. And so we had needed someone to watch her while we were singing. So we asked Tracy's coworker. You know what her first question was? Is it in a church? Yeah? I can't go. Never been to a church in her life. Why would it bother her to go in one? The only spiritual experience she'd had in her whole life was knowing us and feeling guilty because she took a Bible when she was in grade 3 and she never read it. Guilt is a real thing that plagues a lot of people. So we had a conversation about it. Guess what happened? She came. And she sat with Danielle through the whole thing, and the church didn't burn down, and hell didn't open up. Nothing bad happened. Why am I telling you this story? Because there are people out there who want to come home, who can't even say the words that they want to come home. In whatever chapter it was, the demon-possessed guy in the cemetery with the chains and crazy guy, Jesus comes across the sea to find him. He comes running to Jesus. And he says, I'm a demon, or full of demons, blah, blah, blah. You know what Ellen White says about that guy? He wanted Jesus to set him free. We are the bridge. By the end of the day, I'll have 150. And we started on November the 8th.